Friday the 13th, the final chapter. Considering we're only 1/3 into my video series,
I can think of at least 2 things wrong with that title.
like part 3 before it, there were plans to have this be the last Friday movie, but it obviously didn't end up being the case, not by a long shot. Something I didn't mention before, mostly because I didn't know, is the actual time frame that these films supposedly take place in. The first movie, released in 1980, takes place in 1979. Part 2, 3 and the final chapter were supposed to happen on consecutive days, with Jason attacking the counselor camp, getting injured and taking refuge in the Higgins barn the next day, and the resurrection and return to Crystal Lake right after. Part 2, Part 3 and final chapter were released in 81, 82 and 84 respectively, but are stated as being 5 years after Mrs. Voorhees' death, putting all 3 movies canonically happening in 1984. Since the movies were coming out on a near yearly basis, it's funny to see the style and fashion change. The first one looked very 70s, and even though only days were passing, the next few movies saw the girls' hair get gradually bigger and bigger, the clothes get more colourful, and the mullets going full on party mode. The final chapter is the first to introduce an even scarier monster than Jason himself. Of course, I'm talking about Corey Feldman. The movie begins with the aftermath of Jason's rampage from part 3 and Jason's body being taken to the local morgue after receiving an axe to the head. But perhaps beckoned back to this plane of existence by Jason's worst enemy, casual premarital sex, he is resurrected, kills the hospital staff and returns to Crystal Lake like a moth to flame. As per series tradition, a gaggle of horny teens are travelling to a cabin in Crystal Lake to get up to no good. But this time, said cabin is next door to a family home of a divorcee mum, teenage daughter Trish, and young son Tommy. The teens run across the Double Mint twins. No, really, these two were twins in a Double Mint gum commercial. And they all go skinny dipping, earning Jason's eternal wrath no doubt. Trish and Tommy come across their own attractive stranger in Rob, who was in the area to hunt stuff. That night, the teens get up to their usual hijinks, drinking, smoking, and getting raunchy, and watching 9x10 pornography on a reel-to-reel projector, as we've all done 100 times. Jason gets to work picking them off one by one. He also gets the divorcee mum next door. Trish and Tommy return home to find their mother missing and no power, and Trish goes to find Rob in the woods, who admits his sister was Sandra, one of Jason's victims in part 2, and he is here to hunt him down. They return to the cabin and find the bodies of all the teen, and Rod is instantly killed off as well. Trish tries to distract Jason long enough for her brother to escape, but instead, Tommy uses his pre-established mask-making skills to disguise himself as a young Jason, and while Jason is distracted, Tommy gets a headshot in with a machete. He goes apeshit and hacks Jason's body up. Young Tommy obviously affected by the experience. The final chapter is about as close to being the quintessential slasher flick while still taking itself pretty seriously. Though it still does have some problems, it's usually rated to be either best or second best film in most fans' eyes. The film maintains that the situation should be something to fear, while still making sure to get in some fan service, without going for an all-out comedic moment or making self-referential humor. Jason comes back from the dead. It's obvious that he was killed in the last movie, and presumably trained professionals brought him to the morgue with the medical opinion that he'd joined the choir invisible. And he just wakes up and goes back to Crystal Lake like nothing happened. He's never actually given any explanation in this movie as to the whys or hows of his resurrection, and it's given no significance in the plot. He's just alive again, stop asking questions. The kids in this one are very good. They're all young and attractive, but we do spend some time getting to know a limited amount of details about them. So while they're not bogged down in too many pointless character elements, they're far from blank slates either. Well, most of them. There's still one or two that are just there to up the body count. I do like that there's a little bit of drama between them. The smarmy one calls out his friend for being a dead fuck, but in the end, none of the girls will even get close to him. The dead fuck gets one of the twins, but it was obvious that he was her second choice. Her first choice has a girlfriend, who gets angry about all the attention the twin gives him. And although both twins seem really flirty at first, only one decides to hook up. The other gets noticeably uncomfortable with the situation and her sister's actions. The funniest character in the whole movie, and maybe even the whole series, is Rob. But sadly for him, it's a completely unintentional type of funny. When we first meet him, he seems like a good guy. He knows about cars and he helps Trish out when she breaks down. He's polite to their mother, and he lets the annoying kid show him all the horror mask and props he's worked on. Later on, he recounts how he knows Jason is still alive and is hunting him down, Someone's finally taking a proactive approach to the monster. He's learned about his target and comes packing weapons and equipment. Here is one guy that's not going to be caught unawares. The only thing is that after all this, he only sets foot in the murder cabin for about a minute before Jason's hacking him to pieces. He is literally slaughtered straight off the bench. And it's not even a surprise attack either. Jason comes at him front on and all Rob can do is take it like a bitch. He doesn't even get one shot in. The most laughable thing, however, is that while getting murdered, he literally starts yelling out, "He's killing me!"
Oh God, what have I done?
I just told you!
Overall, the deaths in this one are a bit of a letdown. Nothing too exciting except for Jason pulling out the old head squeeze again. Jason's own death is probably the most memorable one, except for Rob's, of course. The setup has been slightly switched up, as there is a house full of young teens, but the survivors are not part of that group. They're in a different house, which sort of works against it as Trish disappears for a while and you almost sort of forget about her. You get more invested about all the other crazy kids. Corey Feldman's character borders on the annoying kid's sidekick. He's set up early to be good at making rubber masks and special effects, which comes close to being the boy genius trope, but he doesn't really get enough screen time to get that annoying. Though he does get enough to find himself confronted by naked bodies once or twice, which is kinda awkward when you're realizing you're witnessing this kid's first boner. This movie is the raunchiest one yet. Straight off the bat, the entire group gets to Crystal Lake and is getting their gear off for some sweet skinny dipping, and multiple couples pair off to get their mac on before their inevitable demise. And if you're longing to see what your great-grandmother might have looked like topless, you're in luck, I guess. Did you know they buried Pamela Voorhees on the side of a random road and gave her this pissy little gravestone? The ending is a little on the nose, with Tommy seen casually cutting off all his hair and doing his makeup to look like a younger Jason in about 30 seconds while his sister runs for her life. So, how did he know that dressing up like a little drowned boy would mesmerize Jason so much? How did he know that Jason wouldn't just see him as that same little kid he saw a minute ago just with a shitty haircut? This is the first time in the series someone else besides the one girl survives Jason's attacks. There is a slightest hint that they were going for a bit of a parallel between Jason and Tommy, with Tommy losing his mother, going through this traumatic experience, and losing control and slashing the shit out of Jason's corpse. Especially with the evil look he gives right at the end. Will this lead to anything? Well, let's see what Tommy gets up in the final chapter.